presenters, and for me, my expectations have already been fulfilled, and I'm sure that's true of all of you. I'm going to talk today about I'm going to step away a little bit from the deep science that we've discussed already, and talk about the following aspects. First, a few broader challenges faced by the rice sector in Pakistan. Secondly, some of the policy responses to the need for decarbonisation. A few comments on technologies, and then lastly, I want to introduce the SRP as a framework for collaboration. We've seen what collaboration has achieved in enabling the current research activity to proceed. I think we can do a lot more. I think we can think about innovative partnerships to see how we can extrapolate and ensure these emission factors are as accurate as possible across a broad range of agroecological zones. So let me very quickly, don't be intimidated by this list, very quickly say a few words about some of the challenges for rice in Pakistan. They also apply to a number of other countries, but fellow presenters have already noted that Pakistan is ranked very high amongst countries most highly vulnerable to global warming, climate change. And in particular, in regard to the rice sector, rice is especially vulnerable within that. In that temperature rise particularly is expected to reduce yields by between 8 to 10%. It will also reduce yields for Pakistan's other staple wheat in most agroecological zones. So let me just move on here then. What are the policy responses from the government and from other organizations? The Nationally Determined Contributions Report has set some quite ambitious targets for projected emissions across the board. And I'm going to skip over these in the interest of time. Particularly important is the government's insistence on conditionality of access to international climate finance to help deliver and leverage these contributions under the Paris Agreement. It's willing to do so much on its own, but it does need support from the international development community. Also, market and non-market resources are needed, and the government has emphasized the role of the private sector in meeting climate ambitions, both in mitigation and in adaptation. So you can read more about that, and it's very clearly set out in the NDC report of 2021. So let's talk about some milestones in delivering, in what has brought us to today's meeting, and I'm very proud that SRP has been involved in Pakistan since 2014, when we began with Helvetas and other partners, many of whom are here today. Shahid is here, RPL is here. When we started the Water Productivity Project, which was really fundamentally based on AWP as an implementation mechanism. And that was also based on, it was rice and cotton in fact, but it delivered some very important data, which I'll share in a moment, on multiple benefits of delivering, of adopting sustainable practices, aside from climate change and water productivity. So so that project lasted until 2022. We've also undertaken some work with UNEP and the Climate Clean Air Coalition to extend the database, if you like, the evidence-based base on emissions, on short-lived pollutants from Pakistan's rice sector. That report is available on the net. And in fact, Dr. Arjuman was the country consultant for Pakistan in this study. Since then, we within SRP are working under our assurance program to create market linkages. I mean, what that WAPRO project really did was to create a viable production base, a supply base for sustainable rice to serve European markets primarily, where the demand lies right now. And so without the intervention and the support from the Swiss Development Corporation, from some of you here, we would not really have a viable supply base and a cadre of trained professionals to support a transition to sustainable practices. So that's a really important basis. And then the market development initiative is currently still working on matching suppliers, exporters here to buyers in Europe, and in building up the capability of producers here to meet sustainability standards and the requirements of the European market. And then, of course, we know that the ADB technical assistance has played an enormous role in bringing us in pushing this along. Two technical assistance programs have been implemented, as you see here, and then, of course, the National Adaptation Plan was implemented by the Pakistan government, again to set a broad vision for what it sees as the demands to adapt the rice sector to inevitable impacts of climate change and create resilience within the sector. Last year, then, we launched a national chapter of SRP within Pakistan, and that is hosted by Helvetas. But it's really a multi-stakeholder initiative that brings together participants from all different stakeholder groups: private sector, public sector, citizen, CSOs, and research. So I encourage you to play a part in that exercise in this coalition, so we can have a unified voice that speaks on behalf of sustainability in the sector. Okay, so basically, we don't need a message here. These are a bunch of different technologies that can actually help to decarbonize production on the farm. The message here is that we do not need innovation, perhaps. The yield gap between research and field is so high in rice that what we actually first need to do is to implement existing proven technologies and to improve upon them, rather than look for exciting, sexy new technologies and innovations that are sometime down the road. Of course, we know that the most consequential of these technologies, shall we say, are AWD, DSR, maybe not so much in Pakistan. That the record has been quite patchy in Pakistan, but it's elsewhere, it's important, and laser leveling as tools to deliver both water productivity and mitigation. So we can focus very closely on those technologies, I think, to drive change. Another one that's really important, I think, is, of course, alternatives to burning, which is a region-wide problem. I'm based in Bangkok, in Thailand, and it is an annual recurrence where air quality is disastrous. So within SRP, we have a mandatory threshold, mandatory requirements that must be met: no burning under any circumstances, to ensure nutrient use efficiency, soil health, and so on. Some of the alternatives, as you know, will be the use of perhaps accelerants for aerobic decomposition, zero-tillage solutions for wheat, such as direct drilling, and there are many others. So I think this is an area where innovation really is necessary. There aren't any very clear solutions available that are widely applicable, and so I think we do need to look at new technologies to accelerate decomposition and find new systems that can remove the need for burning. Okay. So SRP, very quickly to end up, we are a multi-stakeholder global platform to develop tools, basically to catalyze change. We can't do this on our own. We need to develop tools that can be adopted by others. And in fact, I was really interested to hear Dr. Ando's presentation. It was a really superb presentation. Thank you again. And we are actually in discussions with IRI in the Hanoi office for using how we can work together to use and support the sector tool and the rice more application to support SRP implementation, and indeed deliver more data to the tool itself so we can improve. I'm smiling here. I need more data. So we develop tools. We convene partners to bring together, to unify partners behind a common voice, behind a common cause, and also to catalyze then and bring these innovative approaches, and also bring these proven solutions to the farm. But also finally to fill financing gaps, and I'll come to that. We are 110 members across 32 countries, so we're very, very well divided across the stakeholder spectrum. Makes for some interesting conversations, but we think it's a robust and honest conversation that brings together diverse perspectives and in the end creates more robust outcomes. So we're very much an inclusive organization, I suppose. This is just some of our tools. I think, of course, the SRP standard is the most fundamental. And I would say we are currently entering the third cycle of revision. And I invite you all to participate in this process. Contact me if you're interested to participate. Many of you have already, actually. And Imran Sheikh is the chair of our technical committees here today, and we'll be very happy to hear from you if you're interested in participating in the revision of these standards. What about impacts? Well, by implementing the SRP standard across multiple production contexts, and this is what interested me very much. Right, these are not peer-reviewed results, but our members did these studies autonomously, and we found reductions in water use, reductions in chemical usage, and in the end, a savings in net costs. So higher net farm incomes and concomitant reductions in emissions resulting from AWD implementation. Now, what's important about this is that many people think about SRP as an export-led initiative. It's already good for export value chains. But I say to you here that these benefits are market agnostic. Farmers are benefiting economically from transforming to SRP because the higher net incomes accrue to all farmers regardless of market. So that's an important message I want to share to you here. And I just got this actually yesterday. These are some results from the WAPRO project here in Pakistan, and they really support this thing. And I'm going to skip through these very quickly in the interest of time. Savings in irrigation costs, reduced spending on inputs, yield increases. Actually, we've not been claiming that SRP increases yields, but there is certainly no yield penalty. Here in Pakistan, there were some increases in yields. And of course, increased net farm incomes. And perhaps finally, positive externalities for the following crop. You end up with a more fertile crop, more fertile soil in which to plant the wheat or cotton or whatever. So a lot of these very positive win-win situations arising from the work that was done over those 8 years actually through in WAPRO here in Pakistan. On the back of the standard, we launched in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. Not great timing, I do admit. And we are now selling, our members are now supplying SRP verified rice, mainly basmati from India and from Pakistan, to the European markets, some to the US markets and others. So it's a really, really important growth that we're seeing in the uptake of the market uptake of SRP verified rice. And the latest news here is we've just launched we've just begun the development of a low carbon assurance module, which will allow value chain partners to make verifiable abatement claims for their scope 3 emissions within their own value chains. So that's an insetting model, not an offsetting model, no carbon credits. So, maybe later we'll look at offsetting as an additional option for our members, but for now, this is what we're offering. So we are reaching 10,000 farmers. We hope to reach 50,000 supermarkets rather over the next couple of years. So this is growing fast, and Pakistan is one of the most strategically important supply bases that we have. So thank you, Pakistan. Scaling is really important. I mentioned collaboration. I'm coming to the last slides now. I have set up a coalition of 6 organizations, their logos are at the bottom here, basically to try to get SRP incorporated and embedded as the theory of change within the portfolios of these large development agencies. And FAO and UNEP are the principal GEF agencies, as you will know, and they've secured funding of around 70 million in grant funding and much more in co-financing to deliver sustainable rice projects across the region. And variously they incorporate SRP to some degree. And in the next replenishment round, the Jeff 8 replenishment round, there are many more rice projects being funded and that are looking at sustainable rice. So far from being a neglected crop as it was prior to the Paris Agreement, rice seems to be everyone's darling, and so there's a realization that rice is a really important crop to be addressed in the climate and food security debates. So finally, I mentioned financing gaps. This is my last slide. We are working. You're not going to get transformation without participation of the financial sector. There are some major financing gaps in rice value chains. We've commissioned several studies that have led to this program, financed by the Global Environment Facility, which will help us design sustainable rice finance facilities in 3 countries initially: Cambodia, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. These will be connected, and the idea is that we will be able to help bridge the financing gap between what's available through multilateral finance institutions, 10 million and up, and what farmers really need, hundreds of dollars. So there's a huge gap there, and what can we do to create intermediary structures that are efficient? The idea then being that as a result of this, we will create the foundation for a much larger global sustainable rice fund of $500 or $600 million that can help shape the flow of finance to meet some worthy sustainability objectives. So that's something a few years down the line that I think the Green Climate Fund is already interested. We've had conversations with ADB and with private sector banks, Rabobank, and so on. So we're very optimistic that we can make this a reality. Was it my last slide? This is my last slide. Okay. Key messages then, and this is really important. We've heard a lot about AWD as a single intervention. I will put it to you that ADB is really important as an anchor. It is not the whole story. It cannot be delivered on its own, and really needs to be delivered as part of a more holistic sustainability framework that delivers economic benefits, first and foremost, to farmers. You won't sell farmers on carbon, you will sell them on economic benefits. Some messages on climate investment. The level of climate investment in agriculture is quite low compared with other sectors, and that really needs to be looked at political level. And lastly then, I will leave you with this message: low emission sustainable rice makes good sense for farmers, and it also makes good sense for business. A plug for our conference coming up in November. Please do join. The announcement is coming up probably in the next day or so. Please reach out to me if you're interested in participating, in speaking, or in sponsoring or exhibiting. Really appreciate your time.